Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about the use of sunlight to improve your health. And I'm really excited to have one of my good friends here as the guest. And she's not here because she's my good friend, but rather because she's developed a lot of expertise as Canada's first quantum nutritionist. We first met at the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition. This was about 10 years ago, and she was actually the valedictorian. Today, she runs Laura Kissmann Wellness, offering many, many services. So, welcome, Laura.
Thank you, Isme. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's such a privilege. So, are you ready to rock and roll?
I'm as ready as I can be.
Okay, great. So,
Thank you for that intro too. It was really lovely.
oh, you're welcome. If you could, for our viewers, tell us what is a quantum nutritionist? We all kind of know what a nutritionist does, but what is a quantum nutritionist?
So we're talking about going below the atomic level and these tiny, tiny things called electrons. And then in terms of light, the smallest packet of light would be a photon, for example. And so the smallest packet of positive charge would be a proton. So these are just examples of what when I talk about quantum. So when I talk about the quantum field, we're talking about that subatomic level where we're working in electrons, photons, protons, all of this. And so this kind of nutritionist is not just looking at food. Food is definitely a piece, but they're going beyond that. They're looking at what is the environment the body is in.
Mhm.
We're looking at the sun as a nutrient, for example. We're looking at things like microwave radiation or blue light as kryptonite for the body, basically. And we're really working with the person, almost like an occupational therapist. I just thought of this, but almost like there's a physiotherapist and an occupational therapist, and the occupational therapist is very much helping the person optimize their environment to
Oh,
thrive.
I'm just curious, what got you interested? I know you're interested in so many different aspects and you've studied so many different fields in terms of health and wellness. But what made you particularly interested in this field?
Because of what I studied, I think I was more open to this when I heard about it. So my degree, I went to military college, and my degree started off in engineering for 2 years, and it was not a good fit. I was working as hard as I could and wasn't really thriving in that environment. I don't have an engineering mind really, and so I really was drawn to the science, more the sciences, and I ended up studying physics and physical oceanography, and the physics is where I studied quantum physics, solid state physics, nuclear physics, which we look at the quantum level. Um,
Wow, Laura, that in itself is a huge feat because I took biology in university and I mean, you had to rub all the cells in your brain together to understand. That's what I felt. But anyway, good for you.
well, I'll share that we have something in common because I ended up taking biology, so I'll hold that thought. The physical oceanography was all about waves. Like it sounds really sexy,
Mhm.
physical oceanography. I thought I was going to be studying, scuba diving and, having fun. And I did get to go out in a little boat and test the salinity of the ocean out in Victoria, but that was as sexy as it got. And it was all physics equations and studying waves. That's when I took biology, first year biology. And I agree with you. There's so much to learn. It was so much studying. But it was a very different way. And it was funny, I thrived in that where I didn't thrive in the engineering and some of the physics. I struggled to get through. But I fell in love with anatomy, physiology, and so that opened up. I ended up taking massage therapy instead of physio. And then never really worked in it, went back to the Air Force because it was easy and convenient. And then I eventually ended up with you taking holistic nutrition, which I
So,
felt was a much better fit.
so I wonder, what did you do in the military? Just if you could
Oh,
explain.
okay. I was a telecommunications officer, which it's funny, was not my first choice. I wanted to be an air navigator. I wanted to be an operator in flying in the sky. And again, the sexy job. But my first job ended up being a NORAD job. So NORAD meaning North American Aerospace Defense. So guarding the skies of North America, and it was an amazing job. So I worked underground, and that was pretty fascinating. So
You worked underground?
I worked 666 feet underground for 4 years.
Wow. And was that on a daily basis?
It was daily,
Okay.
except when we had exercises, NORAD exercises. And when we had exercises for 2 to 3 weeks, we would be on a shift. And so I didn't actually sleep there though, but I might be doing the shift overnight. Um,
So we're talking about sunlight today and the use of it for improvement to our health. And I was wondering, because the military um, stuff that you were doing, did it have any impacts on your health?
just to paint the picture, I was the picture of health growing up. I was a gymnast. I was outside, grounded, doing cartwheels all day long. Yeah, it was that era. It was the 70s and early 80s. Our lives were outside. We walked 2 kilometers to school 4 times a day because we came home for lunch. We did
Exactly. I
sports
totally
outside.
remember all those days, or biked, or, there
Yeah,
was always
biking,
activity.
skateboarding, all that. We were outside all the time. The
Mhm.
sounds were different, right? Outside, we had kids playing all the time. And I got to my first job, which was underground for the 4 years up in North Bay, Ontario. I was happy. I loved my job, but I had a knee surgery there. And it was after that knee surgery that all my symptoms started. I started to lose my hair. Um, that was really the biggest thing that was obvious, and nobody could figure it out. I was tested for thyroid and autoimmune stuff, and nothing would show up. But it was very unusual to have a 23-year-old healthy young girl be losing her hair, right? And it just yeah, and I had chronic pain. My knee injuries, like my knee and my feet, they should have healed. I had chronic plantar fasciitis for 35 years in the end. Nobody has that. People get it for 6 months or maybe a
Mm.
year, then it might recur. But no, I was in chronic pain for so many years. So that was a big part of my health journey. And then eventually,
Was that actually in your 20s or 30s that
no,
you
so
had?
started in the injuries happened around the age of 20.
Mhm.
Um, but so this first NORAD job, I probably finished around the age of 25, 24, 20, yeah, 25, I think, 26.
Wow,
And
that must have been really difficult to be healthy all your life and then suddenly,
yeah,
a young person should be vital and so on, but
yeah,
not quite.
but it was small, like there were small things.
Mhm.
So I just thought, okay, I guess this is what I'm gonna have to live with, right? But it was hard. I was on the sidelines, I was so active. And so I was a triathlete at one point, and then I couldn't run anymore. And that was like a funeral in my life, honestly, like emotionally, which
Mhm.
I'll probably deal with homeopathically at some point. Eventually, I met my husband, boyfriend, fiance, fighter pilot. We ended up having children, and after my first baby, I became hyperthyroid, and I was diagnosed. It's a horrible thing, but I got diagnosed with parasites. And I was actually lucky that the doctor tested both and my blood and my stool to figure out this combination. And I was told I was lucky because it wasn't my pancreas, for example. It's so much better to have a thyroid issue than a pancreas, that it would be diabetes or something.
Mhm.
So anyway, it was my next challenge.
Well,
And
interestingly, everybody thinks, oh, we nutritionists know a lot and we are healthy people and so on. And often we nutritionists go into trying to learn about all these things so that we can help ourselves. and or family
or
members,
family.
you know,
Yes.
that kind of thing. So
That,
that's the draw often.
so
Yeah.
that was, yeah, so it carried on. I ended up, well, I'll try and summarize the thyroid. It was a bit of a journey. I went into remission. Then I ended up it came back and I had radioactive iodine, which basically kills your thyroid. And then you end up on medication. And, you know, if I could turn back the clock, knowing what I know, even in holistic nutrition alone, but especially knowing the quantum biology piece and all the health strategies that go with that, I would have never done that big. It wasn't a surgery. It was basically swallowing a pill,
Mhm.
and the person handing you this pill is in fully suited up in nuclear to protect from a nuclear event, and you're basically, taking this pill and putting it in your mouth, and you're thinking, is this safe? So I guess I'm,
Wow.
yeah, crazy, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
So,
let's then circle back to the topic of the day. If you could explain to all of us
okay.
um, how critical is sunlight to our well-being? We all know that our Homo sapien ancestors, they used the sun to determine when they were going to hunt and gather
Mm.
or when they were going to sleep. We've certainly evolved a lot since then. So today, how critical is sunlight to us?
I would say it's not only critical, but it's essential. Um, and I'll give you a quote. I'll read it just to get it right. Almost every chronic condition can be directly linked to chronobiological disruption. And that's Dr. Alexander Wunsch, his quote. And he's known as the light doctor. So if you have a chance to interview him, that would be an incredible interview. And he's a physician and a professor, and he's done a lot like amazing research with light. To
What
to
chronic conditions are you talking about? Can you kind of
Oh, okay, good
list them?
question. Chronic conditions are things like arthritis, osteoarthritis, could be rheumatoid arthritis, could be there's you get diagnosed and you have an autoimmune disease or type 2 diabetes, or could be heart disease. And of course, the big one of all would be cancer. Okay.
Mhm.
And I'll include another big one, is neurological. And we're seeing a big rise in these chronic diseases, from the young side of things with autism to the Alzheimer's on the other end, the spectrum, and Parkinson's, um, I'm trying to think of the other big ones that are really common, but oh, MS would be one that I would add to that. Yeah. So anyway, that's a big question you've asked me. So there's lots to go with that there. Um, so chronobiology, a part of chronobiology is circadian rhythm. And so the sun is key. Sunlight is the biggest driver of our circadian rhythm.
Can you define for our audience what you mean by circadian rhythm, in case people haven't
Okay.
heard that terminology?
Okay. But it's basically looking at the solar and lunar rhythms and how they affect our body, and how there are certain times of the day that are optimal. Um, the sun is driving that through its light code, that we should be sleeping, we should be eating, we should be exercising.
Oh, so it's essentially the 24-hour clock, really, that
Yes.
throughout the day. Um,
Yes, that's circadian. There's also infradian, which is a seasonal cycle as well. Yeah, and you can actually, if you Google it, you'll get these beautiful clocks, and they have like a man inside, man or woman inside, and it'll tell you. You can actually look up when is the best time to exercise, for example. And actually, it's late afternoon. Funny enough, it's not first thing in the morning, because if you exercise first thing in the morning, you raise your cortisol too high, and you tell your body that it's starving, we're in a scarce environment. Yes.
Wow, that must be why I recently started doing things in the morning, and I feel exhausted throughout the day, actually.
Interesting.
So I
Interesting.
was normally doing exercise after lunch,
Yeah, you might want to stick to that. Some people, if they do just a light exercise in the morning,
Mhm,
they'll exercise again. They'll almost be drawn to do more later on in the day
mhm.
when it's yes.
So
Okay.
we have this 24-hour clock.
Okay.
What about that? What
Okay. So we have this
else do
24
we
hour.
need
We
to
have this.
know?
Yeah. What I want you to know is that inside our bodies, this was only, I want to say, I might be wrong. 2009 is coming into mind, where we discovered, a researcher discovered that we have a little clock. It's actually our master clock in the brain, and it's up in the hypothalamus.
Okay.
And that master clock, um, it reads it's sorry, its clock is set by sunlight. And so when we set it every morning, or we should, at sunrise. But the body is always, every time you go outside and you see the sun, it resets the clock. It's checking in. Okay, no, it really is what time is it now? It's 6:40 at night. If I go step outside and my eyes get in that light, it's another safety signal to the body going, yep, yeah, it really is 8:40, 6:40 at night. Oh, we have in our eyes these receptors, special receptors. They're photoreceptors called melanopsin. Again, only discovered, again, maybe around 2009. So this is very new science. And we also found out it's in our skin and in our subcutaneous fat and in our blood vessels. And they're blue light receptors. So when we do different things around blue light, there's messaging that's coming in and going up to that master clock. And that master clock has to be faster, running just very, very slightly faster than every clock in the body. We have little clocks, we call them clock genes, all on every organ, every tissue, every cell. And so we're like one big clock.
It's pretty amazing how intelligent nature is, and that information translates into us because we're part of nature. And the whole thing is quite mind-blowing to me.
Well, and here's an analogy for you that a lot of people use with this. And I know you're close to someone who's in an orchestra, and it's an orchestra. And so the conductor is this SCN. And if all the musicians all over the body are playing at the wrong time, it doesn't sound like music. Suddenly it's jarring.
It's a cacophony.
It's a that's the word. It's a cacophony. It's chaos.
Right.
And that chaos, unfortunately, in physics, the physics going on in the body, it translates into biology as inflammation. Yeah. So being dysregulated, having a dysregulated circadian rhythm, where the example of that would be staying up really late, sleeping in, shift work, or even what we call social jet lag, where you have perfect circadian rhythm 5 days a week when you go to work, but then Friday night comes and you want to have fun and you stay up late with your friends, and then you think, oh, I'll just sleep in. So I sleep until 11. That's called social jet lag. You might as well have just flown from England to Toronto. And
Yeah, you know what though? There are the chronotypes. A
right,
chronotype is just someone's natural inclination to either be sort of like a night owl versus morning lark. I mean, those are two categories.
yeah,
There's many more, but um, it's some people's dominant rhythm is to be a night owl. Like I have a brother
I know.
who sleeps in until noon, and then he wants to sleep at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. That works for him. Now, he was a professor, so he had to, go by the clock that everybody else uses. But when he's retired now, and that's what he likes to be on. My mother, same thing. I, on the other hand, I like to get up early, and but I also, go to bed at around 10, 11. I don't really know if I could, shift my brother or my mother's clock. Is it realistic to think that they could or they should? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
That is a tough question. I'm not a circadian rhythm expert in doing research in that field, so I'm going to give my own personal thoughts on it. I'd heard they did one research study at a university where they found 6 chronotypes, in two, 4 more in addition to the 2 you mentioned. Um, yeah, that was just like asking these students how they felt, and they came up with these 6. I think definitely the research is showing that there's a predisposition, maybe a genetic predisposition. And there's these theories that, even my son tells me all the time when he was in his teenage years and wanted to stay up late. Well, mom, somebody had to stay up with the fire, and, so maybe we're just predisposed. And there is this theory that different times of your life that, you have beautiful circadian rhythm when you're a baby, and then as a teenager, you're more prone to stay up later, and the body wants to sleep in, and as we get older, we don't sleep as long, and there's all these theories. But what I will say is that um, what I have learned in the last 3 years studying this, we are designed to see the full light spectrum starting from the beginning of when it comes out at sunrise to sunset. And we are definitely diurnal animal, like humans are diurnal. Our retinas are actually we have a specific kind of retina that's different from the nocturnal animals. And I I do think there's people like you'll you can try and change them, but there's a little bit of a genetic predisposition, and so they may sway back to it. I don't know how much that is habit, or some people just love the quiet of the night. They find they're more creative. It's very possible. But I guess my message would be, I don't know that that's wise, because of our basic biology, quantum biology, that we are designed for the light code of our sun. And if we ignore that, you may not get sick today, it may not be tomorrow, but I do think there's a latency with this. And there's just a very uh, pretty popular podcast came out episode. Rick Rubin, who's a famous music producer, has worked with everybody from Def Leppard to Whitney Houston. I mean, he's very, very famous. And he was that night owl. And he was like staying up all night, that was his creative time, and he was proud of it. Well, he had the health scare of his life with, I don't know exactly what happened to his heart, but he had to have a very serious surgery. And he did survive, and he has completely reversed his life because he was lucky to have that wake up call. And so yeah, he's got a podcast called Tetragrammaton, and that interview with Dr. Jack Cruz, his whole story comes out on that one. And I've talked to more people who heard it and were very impacted by that interview. So if you have any listeners that are thinking, I'm a night owl and I'm just fine, I would hear the science on that. There's a lot more science in that interview. And I'll just finish by saying that I was a night owl. Not a brutal night owl, just that I would stay up to 11 o'clock midnight because I'm not a fast reader. It takes me longer. And I too liked that quiet part of the day when the kids are asleep, dishes are done, and I can just focus on whatever if I'm writing a blog article, or when I was a student, so many years and years. I've studied for I don't know how many years, of just getting that last piece written, or whatever exam, ready for an exam. So I switched. I in October 2021, I made a commitment to never miss another sunrise. And when you start doing sunrises and you get all that programming through the day, you cannot be a night owl. It's gone. It's that life will disappear. You will fall asleep. You'll sleep better than you've ever slept. And so,
Okay.
yeah.
So how if you could give us some major, tips that we can implement immediately, because you know what, the sun is free. That's the
Okay.
great thing. So what we need to do to, take advantage of the sun.
Okay. I'll try and give you just three of
Three
the,
would be great
yeah, three.
because
Okay.
three people
Three
can
kind of,
remember. Yeah.
okay. Three kind of tips. Okay. I'll give you, so I'll tell you the three and then so you can keep me on track. So the first one is never misses another sunrise. The second one would be get intermittent sun throughout the day. And that's to include UVA and UVB, which is ultraviolet A and ultraviolet B. And then the third one would be to watch as many sunsets as you can.
Essentially, Laura,
Or
you're
prioritize,
telling
try to.
us that use the sun as a signal to your body to do the healing that it needs at different times of the day. Um,
Yeah,
that will benefit us. Is
yeah,
that what you're saying
yeah,
to us?
exactly. You
It's
just,
it's pretty amazing. It just blows my mind because that's what I love about nature, you know. Nature is so intelligent.
yes,
This information from the light code gets right into our cells and
yeah.
our mitochondria and at the atomic, subatomic level. And yeah, it's just quite profound when you think about it, how
Yeah.
incredibly intelligent it is.
I'll just give a few more thoughts on why it's so important. We've really covered this, sets the circadian rhythm, right? Um, we're also considered batteries made of water charged by sunlight. So there's a lot more to that, but just know that if you think of us as a battery and our skin as a solar panel, um, we need to be charged.
Mhm.
So,
Your
and we're missing
body
that, right?
is electric, isn't it?
Thank you.
There
The
are
body.
electrical impulses running through our bodies, right?
We are full of semiconductors. Yeah,
There
it's
you
true. We're
go.
like, yeah, we are, and we need, yeah. And melanin is one of them. Um,
And
in some,
it's almost like you were saying before we came on, yeah, the sunlight to human beings is like photosynthesis to plants.
yes, it is. We now realize that humans do photosynthesis,
Hmm.
and we use melanin to do that. The plants use chlorophyll, and we use melanin, and that melanin takes the sun in and makes chemical energy out of it. Yeah.
And by the way, everyone, this is really not woo-woo science or pseudoscience because there are thousands and thousands of studies in the scientific literature validating all of this. And
Just
while I haven't really looked at it, I don't know if you have, Laura, but I know Dr. Huberman has, and he says it's well over 2 to 3 thousand studies on this. So,
yes. No, he's right. And one of the ones that I think I should highlight is there was a study done, what year was it? I don't know the year. But in Sweden with 30,000 women. And at the end of the study, they looked back. It was to do with melanoma, and they realized that the women that kept out of the sun um, had higher rates of mortality. So in the conclusion they came to was that especially women, like in Sweden, that live in a low light environment, low solar yield, that it would be almost foolish to avoid the sun because in the end, the sunlight um, decreased all cause mortality. So
mhm.
I think it was 24, might have been 2014. Yeah. So
And
that was a
so,
game changer, that study.
yeah. And so, I just want to circle back to your health and how this all protocol has improved your health.
Okay. Um, so I really got serious about the sun in 2021. October 2021 is when I committed to never missing another sunrise. Um, And it was really interesting when I studied this quantum biology. It 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 was in 20 that time when I graduated the course. That was when I could look back at my life and realize how what I had what had triggered and set up the conditions for me to end up with an autoimmune thyroid disease, and the chronic pain. Trying to think of the others. I had a lot of gut dysfunction, and I really had broken my circadian rhythm, with working underground. In that transition, remember I told you I think I had a good circadian rhythm, and then I worked underground. I did actually seek the sun. I never was afraid of the sun, but I did, we used to put oil on and didn't have a lot of sunscreen, but over the years I did use sunscreen. I wore sunglasses, I blocked my eyes, all of that. But um, yeah, I also I had a knee surgery where my knee was under blue light for 2 hours straight. And now we understand more what that blue light does to the the water in the body. It affects the battery. We are batteries made of water charged by sunlight. Well, I had blue light directly on, an open wound in my body. And it was interesting because it was after that the first hair loss started and then kept on. And anyway, over the years, my circadian, I was a night owl, and I'd watch TV late or work late. Never, there was no such thing as blue blockers, which I normally put on as the time of day here. And so I eventually, what else did I do? Oh, I was a snacker all day. I ate after sunset, all these things that triggered, um, basically caused what we call, I hurt my mitochondria. I caused them there's a term for it called mitochondrial dysfunction. And some people get cancer with that. Some people get diabetes, heart disease. Well, in my case, I ended up with um, thyroid issue. And so flashing ahead, when I finally put all this together in 2021, and I learned all about using sunlight, I um, I got serious about it, and I did the best I can, which is tough to do in Canada because it was winter time. But I got out there in the morning. Wore as few clothes as I could for, it may only have been a minute or so, or 4 minutes. I'd do some exercises, but I took it really, really seriously, and I saw improvements in a number of things. And to tell you those, I would start at the bottom of the body so I can remember. Um, the chronic pain I had in my feet and my knee that I had for so long, I've done many different things that have helped that. I've taken physiotherapy. I took up yoga. I learned, I could never stand barefoot. Now I could stand barefoot and strengthen my feet on a mat. But anyway, with adding in the sunlight, I believe, and getting my circadian rhythm dialed in so that I would regenerate every night, I no longer have chronic pain every day. I can,
Wow, that's
yeah,
really wonderful.
it is so freeing, so wonderful. I work out, I cross country ski every day. In the summer I swim every day. And the neat thing is that I recover. So that was the pain. Then the next one is moving up the body to the female genitalia. Um, it's a little embarrassing, but um, I've been blessed with good periods. That's not a problem, but it's just interesting to see how late I have entered menopause, which I think I just have at almost age 58. And if I compare to my mother, she was, I don't know the exact date, but she ended up with hysterectomy. So I'm quite pleased that I'm healthy and that area is healthy. And I yeah, I think I went quite gently through all that. Um, then if I move up, then we get to the stomach, and I think of digestion. And I didn't really mention too much, but I had a lot of food sensitivities. I also test for them. I know a lot about it, but a lot of bloating, constipation, and I'm not saying it's 100% because it depends on it does depend to some degree what you eat. But when you get the light right, you don't have to focus on food as much. And that has been another very freeing piece. As I travel, my later years, I'm traveling more. And it's just so nice to go to a restaurant and not have to think, oh, I can't have that and I can't have that. And think you're going to pay for it after the meal. that's less and less. And so I know that that's been a big improvement. Um, Sleep was probably the most obvious. When you do this protocol and you really commit every day to seeing sunrise, you just fall asleep like a baby. You don't, I always had to read a book ever since, because one of the things I went through was horrific insomnia. And I was quite scarred by that, the trauma of that. So I really guard my sleep because I know how I never know every night. I never knew every night how long it would take me to fall asleep. And I'd have to read and read a very calming book. And now I don't need any of that. I just crawl in my bed, turn off the light, and might have a little aura ring, and I know in 7 minutes I'm fast asleep. And so that's been wonderful. And then um, my thyroid, if I move up the body, um, I did an experiment with my doctor 10 years ago, trying to transition off of my medication to a food like desiccated, a dried up, it's called desiccated thyroid, but it's basically dried up pig thyroid. And I failed. I just was lethargic, and I went very hypo, and I failed the experiment. And a year ago, I convinced my doctor, let's try it again. And it's been a year, and it's been a success. And so I'm off of that medication, and I really thrilled about that. So that's another one.
Oh,
And then my vision, uh, uh, I had LASIK surgery in my early 30s and was told I would have to use reading glasses earlier than my peers. And I'm looking at my peers and they're all in reading glasses and I'm still not. So, and I was a very early adopter of blue blocking glasses. I think that that has helped. So I don't know that it's just the sunlight piece. I've done some eye exercises. Again, I'm an N of one, and there are multiple things that I have done. So I cannot say to you, doing this protocol will prevent you from reading glasses. I can't say that, but I can just speculate that it's been a piece. So
well, I'm so glad that you got help on those issues, and you're demonstrating to us that, you know what, it's never too late to begin to change your habits so
yeah,
that it can enhance your health, you know.
absolutely.
So I really want to thank you. It's been an honor and privilege to have you here as Canada's first quantum nutritionist. And I hope this content has been really helpful to people. And if so, please hit the like button. Also, if you want more content, because we haven't even scratched the surface, this was kind of a primer. And, we can talk about blue blockers, sunglasses, so many other aspects, vitamin D. We can drill down even further into these topics. So also subscribe to the channel because we'll have more inspiring stories like Laura's. So thank you very, very much, Laura, uh,
Thank you, Esme.
for
Thank you
being
for this
here.
opportunity.
Yeah, great. And like I said, if you do want to utilize Laura's protocol, it might be worth checking with your, healthcare provider in case you are on any medications that might conflict with, sunlight in your eyes or on your skin or whatever. So it's always a good thing to check that these protocols won't conflict with anything else that you're doing. But I'd like to know because we're here not only to give out information, but also to learn from you. If anybody does try this protocol for 30 days, I'd like to find out whether it's helped people or in what ways, mentally, physically, whatever you have. So please share all of this in the comments. If you have issues and concerns, please write to us in the comments. Okay, so thank you very much once again for listening, and have a very good day or night, depending on where you are in the global village. Bye for now.